Today's topic is actually going to be Shir Shoyom and Pitum Aktoret, two topics which are part of the component called Siyum HaTfilah. And why is it that we recite Shir Shoyom? And then I'm going to go on a slight tangent, and I want to talk about actually special days of the calendar. That we also add a parak of Tehillim as well. Just mention something there at the end. Says the Mishna in source number 12. Ashir shaliv yomrim b'mikdash b'yom harishoy hayomrim l'Hashem haaretz umloat tevav yeshveva b'ashini hayomrim. I'm not going to read the rest, but essentially what this Mishnah does is it reads the first couple of words of the parak of Tehillim that we are actually noheg to recite. The Gemara in source 13 expands on that passage and explains what is the rationale behind each day Shir Shoyom. That is worthwhile reading. Says the Brisa, 13, page 306 at the top. Why? Here's the reason. Al Shem Shekana V'Hikne V'Shalit Bolamo. So specifically, Lashem Haaretz Umloa, the God's the universe is filled with God's glory. That specifically makes sense in the first day, which is the, of course, first day of Brias Olam. Right? That God ruled over that world. So again, it is Umlo, it's God's reign, right? Which, by the way, is why, we recite specifically on, if you take a look, there's a minhag, we don't do it at this shul, but there is a minhag at the end of Mariv on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur to recite this paragraph. Anyone familiar with that? Nessel's fired, but yeah, Pastor guys were in Yeshiva, they did it, that they recite. Why? Again, because it's about God's majesty, God's melucha, which is, of course, the theme of the Yomim Noraim. And specifically, Rosh Hashanah, Basheni Mayomrim, Gadol Hashem Umula Ma'od. Why? Hashem Shechilak Ma'asav Umalach Lehem. That what happens on day 2, God actually, He split, right? You know there's a sense of separation that takes place. What does God create on the second day of creation? So there's the first day is or, the second day is the waters, right? So I get me'od, that meaning that there's an addition of me'od, like God is additionally, I think, it becomes exalted because there's more what to create. Right? One is just the existence of the universe, the totality of the universe, and the second, okay, now there's actually different facets. I think that's what it means by me'od, meaning not just what was there, but even an additional. Okay, this is, what does this mean? What does God do? And again, this is where it comes down to la'adato. What did God do? He revealed the land, because again, now the water is being removed, and now we're actually going to see separation of land. And again, there's knowledge, there's wisdom in doing that. And He prepared the tevel, He prepared all the earthly creatures, la'adato, for the congregant. So again, that's the idea of Elokim nitzav ba'adat, the adat kel and the adato.
What does nitzav mean?
To stand, like to stand. Ma'ruvia yomrim kel nakamot Hashem. Why? Hashem shebara chama v'levana v'atid lifra me'ovdehen. That God creates the celestial entities in the sky, and one day God, shall we say, will be due for those people that actually serve them. So why? El Nekama, there's Nekama here, that God will eventually, those people who serve Avodah Zarah, Oved Kochavim, specifically, there'll be Nekama for what they acted and what they behaved. Why? Hashem Shebara Ofot V'dagim L'shabeach Lishmo. So again, there's Harninu, there's greater sense of Rina, there's greater sense of praising God, because there are more beings that exist. Why? Hashem Shegamar Malachto Umalach Alehem. That God actually completed, and there's nothing to do about man, which I was actually fascinated by, that God actually completed the Malacha, and He ruled over them on the 7th day, Mizmor Sheli HaShabbos, Liom Shekulotov. Here we go. Amar Rabbi Nechemya Ma'aru Chacham Lechalek Ben HaPrakim Elu, Ela Barishon Shekana V'Hikne V'Shali Bolamo, V'Shni Chelek Masav Malach Alehem, and essentially the rest of the Gemara repeats what it said. Okay, we're not going to read the Rashi, but there Rashi, if you're interested, kind of also connects the dots a little bit better to each day. I tried to include Rashi in how I explained it, but the one thing that I think that Rashi adds, the Rashi adds the creation of Lum Shekulo Tov. What does Rashi add of Day of Shabbos? Shatir Holam Liyot Charev. Ve'ein Adam V'choham Lachot Shavtot Aloto Yom Omrim Shir Yom HaShabbat. That again, that there's one day will be complete Shabbos, cessation of the entire universe, like I said, at some futuristic time. Says the Ramban, and this is what's important, and by the way, the Ramban holds this actually mitzvah taseh, a pasuk that says Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. Every day you have to mention Shabbos. There's a mitzvah every day. That's why we recite Hayom not just Hayom Yom Shlishi, Hayom Shlishi b'Shabbat. That there's a positive commandment to mention the day vis-a-vis Shabbos. Right? It is the third day of the Shabbos of the week. Right? There's actually a positive command. That's a Ramban. That's in source 14.
Also after davening the Sheish Hazkarot.
Oh, right, exactly, right, very good. That's actually part of the Sheish Hazkarot after Tefillah as well. So here's this Ramban. Achar shetziva v'shenemar b'shem miyuchad yitbarach shu nimtza hu barehu hamevin hayachov v'hashniyacher hamuna b'chol elav v'kavod lo levado v'tziva shenichabed zecher l'shmo tziva shenasebo zeh siman v'zichron tamid, which is what you're referring to as part of the Zechirot, lo dia shehu barachakov v'hi mitzvat HaShabbat shehi zech Moshe Bereshit. And that's what Ramban says, part of the mitzvah. Say, so there are those who actually say by saying Hayom Shlishi b'Shabbos, you fulfill one of the zechirot of Shabbos. Just as an aside, Rav Soloveitchik felt that there are certain days that the Gemara actually talks about. That certain days you say a special mizmor. For example, Rosh Hashanah, you say what we call today the mizmor for Yom Chamishi. He actually felt that should supplant mizmor Shiur. Sure, I apologize. That should supplant Shiur Shel Yom. That certain days had their own piyut to them, meaning the piyut that was recited in the Beit HaMikdash on the day that exactly part of the service, when they brought the Korban Tamid, they recited this paragraph of the Shiur Shel Yom, and certain Chagim had their own paragraph, and the Rav actually felt that on the days of a Yontif, every day Yontif had its own paragraph to Hillel, you should not say the Shiur Shel Yom. Right, that's what he felt because it was part of the aspect. We don't. That's not our minhag today. We don't do that. That's not the standard practice.
I think they specifically do that in Israel. Like they also do that.
So I think in yeshiva, they do both.
They also do that.
They only say Baruch. Right, very good. They don't recite Shiur Shel Yom. Instead, they recite Baruch Nafshi. Exactly. It supplants it. Some places do both. Our minhag here is we do both. Some places it's a big Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon only said one. The Vilna Gaon said only say which paragraph. Whatever, if it's a Tuesday, it's a Tuesday. If it was Chodesh, it's Baruch Nafshi. Baruch Nafshi replaced the Shiur Shel Yom, which is why we don't do it here, but some shuls won't say Kaddish in between Shiur Shel Yom and Baruch Nafshi, because it really, it's an extra, what?
We don't do it.
Oh, we don't do that. That's true. Now we don't do that.
Yeah,
we changed it. Right? So what about the mentioning of Hayom Yom? Very good. So in Baruch Nafshi, you missed that.
So then he would disagree.
So he perhaps that's a very good point actually. What about Hayom Yom Shlishi b'Shabbos that you're missing?
You have to say the Shlish Hazkaros.
Right. Maybe you have to say the Shesh Hazkaros. Right. No, that's a good point. Maybe he would feel you have to recite. I actually don't know the answer to the question, but it's a good point. Maybe you have to mention at the end of davening the Zechirot.
Yeah.
Or to mention, just be aware of it. Okay. Next, this is the P'tim Maktor is a great thing to discuss because we all know, like do we say it, do we not say it? We don't say it here. We only say it on Shabbos. Nusach Sfard says it every day. Why is there whole machlokas? So this is the reason for the machlokas. Take a look. It says P'tim Maktoret. Kodem Amrit P'tim Maktoret. What do we say? Ein Kolokenu. Also very strange. What does Ein Kolokenu? Right? Ein Kolokenu. Ein Kolokenu. Why? What's the rationale behind it? Here we go. Hatam Lakach. Shekevan Shaktoret Masheret. The Mishna says that whichever Kohen offered the Ktoret, it gave them wealth. Yesh Hashash. Shachshav Hadam Kochi ve'etzem yedias hadachai lazeh adosher hazeh. Sorry, I quoted the pasuk, not the rephrasing of. If you bring the Torah and if it makes you wealthy, so all of a sudden you bring the Torah, then you make $1 million. You're like, wow, look how great I am. So specifically before you recite the Torah, what must you say? Ein Kolokenu, Ein Kadunenu, Michalokenu, Michadunenu. Right? Meaning specifically, it's not about me. It's about God. I had no idea that was the reason why. So there you go. Okay, I thought that was very good. Now, here we go. Al Pia Zohar. There's a tremendous chashivas in P'tim Maktoret. Shari Kayom Ein Adam. There's no mikdash anymore. So what do we do instead? We know. Instead of offering the korbanah, we recite the various korbanot instead. So therefore we recite the P'tim Maktoret. It says the Zohar, which I'm not going to read in our Mek, but what he basically says, and this is what's fascinating. Read the commentary underneath. Mitoch kach nimtza b'miktzat kihilot she'in lo umra. Why? Mechashash shema yachsirenu b'mirata. Here's something very important. If you messed up the Torah, one iota, what are you chayav? You're chayav mita. So therefore, if we take this parallel the whole way, and we say, instead of offering the Ktoret, what do? We say it. If you mess up offering the Ktoret, you're Chayav Mita. If you mess up reciting Pitum Ktoret, you are Chayav Mita. Whoa! Therefore,
that's why I just skip it.
This is Chashash not to recite Pitum Ktoret because maybe you'll slur the words, you won't pronounce it correctly, and you're Chayav Mita. That is the reason that's given. What is this basis? This is a Machloket, the Beit Yosef, and the Ramah. Basically, which now you understand, it's a Machloket between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. That's exactly what plays out, which is why Sephardim say it every day, Ashkenazim do not. And look how honest the Ramah is. Okay? So, take a look at the Ramah. We're going to see the Beit Yosef. Look at the Ramah. The Yesh Omer, he says it. Pitum Ktoret Erev Boker Chad Tefillah. By the way, here's also something which is interesting. Really, you bring the Ktoret, it should be said twice. So, those people that daven Nusach Sfard, anyone here daven real Nusach Sfard? Nusach Sfard, real Nusach Sfard, you say, go to Banot also before, and Mincha too. But, no, it's so funny. You go to many places, there's a certain high school that does Nusach Sfard. I'm not going to mention the name. Then, what do? But it's like fate Nusach Sfard, because they don't do certain things in Nusach Sfard.
They also decided not to.
Right, so they do a few things.
Places like Pine Park, they do that. They actually have that.
I grew up, Beth Jake. Of course you said Korbanah before Mincha. That's what by the way, that's what you're supposed to do. That's real Nusach Sfard. Anyways, so, but the Ramah says, you offer the Torah twice a day, you got to say Ktoret. Every book, V'omrim Techila and Klokenu. V'omrim, and again, we explain the rationale behind it. V'omrim, Hashir Shel Levim Hoyu Omrim B'mikdash. Shachri Levad. V'yesh Shekatvu Lizaher Lomar Pitum Aktor Mitoch Aktuv. There are those who say, you'll be very makbid and only say Pitum Aktor written out of a text. V'lo Balpeh. Do not say Pitum Aktor off by heart. Why? Mishu Mishamira B'makom Haktoret. Because saying it is instead of offering it. And v'chashin and shema yadalag. If you say it balpeh, you might skip one of the words. Echad masimimanim, one of the spices. The amiratan shu chayav mita im chiser echad misameneha. And therefore you chayav mita, just like if you miss out one of these spices. V'lachein nahagu shelo le'omro b'chol. Therefore we don't say it on a weekday. Why? Shememaharin l'malachtan. Because we're going to work. You ever see people dart out after shul? And if ain't Klokenu said at the end of davening, people won't have the proper kavanah. They're going to say blah, 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 blah. They're going to mess up one of the words. That gentleman is the reason why Nusach Ashkenaz does not say Pitum Torah 6 days a week. Now, here's what's very interesting.
Why do they say it?
Shabbos.
Also
again, so Shabbos and Yontif. Shabbos and Yontif, people have more time. They're rushing to work. So first of all, we see something very important. The Ramah recognized people rush to work, meaning that's the reality. So when people say today, you're rushing to things haven't changed. 500 years ago, they're rushing out to work too, right? So don't worry, people rush out to work. It's part of it's a minhag Ashkenaz. Now, Sephardim, minhag Ashkenaz rush out to work. Interesting. What about Sephardim? So either you can hold one of two reasons. Either Sephardim, first of all, you've been to Sephardim Minyan before? They're clearly not rushing out to work. They got a lot more time. It's very interesting, the culture of the Sephardim. Forget like they're already saying Slicha now, the develop, right? The culture of the Sephardim has always been, no rush. Take our time, no rush, no chashash for anything, right? Very interesting how this has been played out, and for 500 it hasn't changed much. Now, I could joke.
I don't think it's a little crazy that
this is 500-year-old tax. This is not like,
You don't think it's crazy that they just were perfectly happy with the fact that if you make a mistake, you're chayav mita. Whereas any other tefillah, even though it's connected,
like Shemona Esrei, Shema,
connected, whatever.
Right. So you're right. So that's so if you take the Beit Yosef, he says, "Come on, that's really can't be true. It doesn't really mean that's the case."
Side point with that is
second row is done. So, but thank you. It's just a fascinating machlokah that goes back 500 years. That today we can see, even culturally, things haven't changed in 500 years, which is absolutely fascinating. Okay, we'll finish up right here. Number 18 says the Mishabura Shami Yadaleg Beit Yosef Mipakbek Bazeh. But Yosef says, "Come on, really? If you say the word is like Chav Mita." That was source 16. The hello in mita Torah. Come on, there's only chav mita, but actually offering the Torah not by saying it. For odin mita ela b'mezid, it's also only mita b'mezid not b'shogeg. Lachein hamedaktiki nohaglim b'chol yom. Says the Magen Avraham. Therefore, if you're medaktik, you should say it every single day. Which, by the way, is the minhag of Ashkenaz where in In Eretz Yisrael, they say it every day. That's Minhag Ashkenaz in Eretz Yisrael. Here's the source for it. V'yei shekatvu do tanshin omrim rak b'Shabbos ein margila v'fumia ken katav yormu b'tach hasiddur. Margila v'fumia, they don't know how to say it properly, and therefore they should say it from the siddur. So regardless, I think you have at the very least, say between a tart from a siddur. No question, the prevailing minhag, by this book is written in Israel. That's why the last line is the minhag b'rov klot Ashkenaz Sfardim Ashkenazim etzei pitum aktor b'kol yom. Because at the end of the day, that actually is minhag Ashkenaz, even in Eretz Yisrael, is to recite pitum aktoret. Maybe in Eretz Yisrael they're not rushing a Torah. I'm not 100% true. You could say a joke is that Ashkenazim. Why is it they're always rushing? Because they have pogroms. You know what I mean? Like in Poland Jewry, Ashkenaz Jewry, they're pogroms. They got to run. They got to be quick. They got to. Whereas maybe the Sfaradim. No, we'll take our time. I don't know if that's any truth that whatsoever. But, but it's, there were no pogroms, inquisitions, crusades, Anyways, I think that's more of a joke than anything serious, but I thought it was interesting how the whole, going out to work and rushing has implications in tefillah, which 500 years later we see are extremely relevant. No question about it. Say it with kavanah, say it properly, and no school till next week, so no one has an excuse for the rushing anywhere these days. Have a wonderful day, everyone.